We stand today at the threshold of a great event, both in the life of the United Nations and in the life of mankind. This Universal Declaration of Human Rights may well become the international Magna Carta of all men everywhere.
The Economic and Social Council created a Commission on Human Rights on the 16th of February 1946.
Notre déclaration se présente comme la plus vigoureuse, la plus nécessaire des protestations de l'humanité contre les atrocités et les oppressions.
I'm Harrison Ford. I live in the United States, but I'm a citizen of the world as well. Here at the United Nations 50 years ago, a dedicated group of men and women created an unprecedented document, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. It's a statement of principles and beliefs that summons each of us to a higher standard. It's not always prevented inhumanity or abuse, but it's given us a set of human rights norms that apply to everyone, everywhere.
Nazi Germany in the 1930s. Racial purity is the driving force of a regime that seeks to create a master race of fair-skinned, blue-eyed men, women, and children. Those who do not meet the criteria for pure blood are marked for extinction, their lives deemed worthless. As the horrors of the Third Reich intensified, the world stood helplessly by. Germany withdrew from the League of Nations. They would have no outside interference. Ultimately, this contempt kindled a global awareness that in the future, the world would need a forceful legal structure to stop assaults on human dignity. French jurist René Cassin was determined that the Nazi terror must never happen again.
C'est en 1933 quand
It was in 1933, when the failures of the League of Nations and the human will allowed Hitler to rise to power and to prosper, may I say, without anyone interfering. It was at that moment that we felt that the international world had to get involved in protecting human rights.
As war raged in Europe, in his 1941 State of the Union address, President Franklin Roosevelt outlined his vision for a future world, the famous four freedoms.
First is freedom of speech and expression everywhere in the world. The second is freedom of every person to worship God in his own way everywhere in the world. Third, freedom from want. Fourth is freedom from fear, which translated into world terms means a worldwide reduction of armaments everywhere in the world.
April 1945, World War II was ending. In Europe, the German army collapsed, and Adolf Hitler died by his own hand. One of the most profane nightmares in the history of the world was over. The sudden death of United States President Franklin Delano Roosevelt shocked the world. Soon thereafter, in San Francisco, California, representatives from all over the world arrived to bring one of his dreams to life. The demand for the dignity of everyone, everywhere, evolved into a simple yet eloquent two-word phrase: human rights. June 26, 1945, the San Francisco delegates approved the United Nations Charter. Human rights were mentioned 7 times. Not only that, the Charter established a Commission on Human Rights, a major step ensuring that the protection of individual liberties would be crucial in the post-war world. Eleanor Roosevelt, widow of the popular American president, was chosen to head the United Nations Human Rights Commission. She already had achieved worldwide fame as a compassionate defender of the needy and downtrodden everywhere. It is a testament to her international reputation that at a time when virtually no women held any positions of authority in the United Nations, she was appointed to chair the group that would undertake the drafting of the world's first Universal Declaration of Human Rights. 1947, Lake Success, not far from New York City. After months of intense preparation, the full Commission on Human Rights, with representatives of 18 nations, gathered for the first time. Eleanor Roosevelt introduces the delegates to the newsreel cameras. They are an extraordinary collection of philosophers, theorists, and diplomats.
For more than 10 minutes. I will begin on my right with the delegate from France, Professor René Cassin.
He took a leading part in the drafting. In fact, he saw himself as the principal drafter of the Declaration.
Next, the delegate from Chile, Honorable Monsieur Santa Cruz.
A good diplomat and also a very energetic person.
The delegate from China, who is also vice chairman of the committee, Dr. P.C. Chang.
He was always a rather calming influence. He would inject some apt philosophical comment if things were getting rather hot.
Our Assistant Secretary General, Monsieur Logier.
J'ai la chance de tomber sur un patron.
I was lucky to have a chief, Henri Logier, who was a fighter for democracy and internationalism. It was wonderful to work for him.
On my left, the committee secretary, Dr. Humphrey.
John Humphrey était pour nous un exemple merveilleux.
John Humphrey was for us an exemplary and conscientious worker. He had lost an arm, but he had the allure of a stately man. He was tall, he was handsome, and his empty sleeve always impressed the people around him.
The rapporteur of the committee and the delegate from Lebanon, Dr. Malik.
He was not easily pushed around, and he maintained his views as strongly as he could.
The delegate from the USSR, Professor Vladimir Koretsky. The delegate from the United Kingdom, Mr. Jeffrey Wilson.
These were the kind of people who would not let evil triumph. They had seen the worst, and they were determined to do their best to see that these sorts of things would not happen again.
Southeast Asia. A representative for the UN Human Rights Program, Thomas Hammerberg is on a mission to Khol Khong, a remote border town on the coast of Cambodia. He will attempt to free 2 young women who for several weeks have been illegally detained. In the early days of the United Nations, such an intervention might have been attacked as violating national sovereignty. But today, human rights abuses are everyone's business, regardless of borders. At a grassroots level like this, case by case, bit by bit, people can be helped. Hammerberg meets with the local military. At the barracks, one of the 2 women is brought to the negotiating table.
If you go and ask people to come here to have a talk with them, that must be seen as an arrest. And the question is, has a military institution of this kind the right, according to Cambodian law, to make arrests? As I read the Cambodian constitution, it does not allow military to conduct arrests.
We just made a report to the region's headquarters, but we did not report to the military prosecutor because we did not commit the arrest or detention. We just invited them here.
The 2 women testify to sexual abuse at the hands of their jailers. Thanks to the moral authority of the UN, and backed by international outrage, Hammerberg obtains their freedom.
When people are oppressed, it's important for them that there is a possibility for outsiders to speak for them. That's the whole idea about international human rights norms.
In 1947, the norms we now hold dear were still a source of fierce debate, as the future UN Secretariat was being erected on the site of an abandoned New York City slaughterhouse. Legal experts and diplomats continued to hammer out the Universal Declaration on Human Rights.